of taking something that is one thing and evolving it into another. That's one of the challenges, I think, where voice and music and AI really could do with a bit of lift. And I also think that that applies when we try and solve problems in real life. A lot of the time, we make the mistake of looking at things linearly and feeling that if we just keep banging our head against that same wall, that we're eventually going to get a different answer. And I'm in a room full of people who are unconventional by nature, so that's something you already know. But curiosity as a tool and technology as a lever is a very powerful thing, and I believe that music is our assembly language in such a primal way. And I think that's why I love presenting at the piano so much. This is like an extra layer of information for me to help understand you and understand my world, and then we create a musical conversation. So I think the last thing I'd like to do before handing the floor over to everybody is to ask if you would like to know anything about your favourite song, or ask if you have any questions or thoughts that I can play with musically.
I just want to ask, is it possible to create a perfect sound like the boy who chased rats from the town with his flute?
You mean like the Pied Piper?
Yeah.
Is it possible to create a perfect sound that leads people wherever they go?
Is it possible?
Well, I mean,
anybody ever studied that? Maybe there is a perfect sound that can affect everyone.
I think there's something in that. I mean, we're physically shaped different, and I wonder whether that's what accounts for our different tastes in music. I think if there was a magical sound, that would be the only thing on the radio all the time, just this kind of meh noise, and everyone walking around in a trance, just needing more speakers. So personally, I don't think there's a perfect sound, but there is this field, psychoacoustics, which talks about how we are manipulated. I mean, if you look at, I don't know, the church, you know, that suspended, it feels so nice when you get there, and it's like that feeling of resolution, that feeling of certainty. I don't think there is a coincidence between a church or faith music having so many definite cadences in. You know, you've got that kind of. And if you look at pop music as well, there is this almost need for affinity with when you hear those sort of resolutions. That's the important thing. And what I've noticed as we've got further and further into globalization is that more and more things are becoming acceptable as musically, what's the word? Like more cuisines are becoming useful, if that makes sense. More and more musical styles are being taken in. It's like the world's musical palette has expanded. So to answer your question in a very slow way, I don't think there's a perfect sound, but I think there might be like perfect sounds for people at certain times. We all have that song that really gets us in the mood for doing certain things, or music to get in the gym, or music to get you ready to go on stage, or ready to go to sleep. And I believe that it's like a form of self-medication. So that doesn't quite answer your question, but it gets close. Have we got any other? Hello?
When you watch a movie with a great soundtrack, which one affects you more, the music or the movie?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, let's have a look.
Because everyone loves a good soundtrack.
Everyone does.
Visual, like,
Yeah. That, music and film, music and visuals is so powerful. Half the people in here are obsessed with visuals and music, and the other half are obsessed with music and visuals, I guess. And putting them together in the art form known as film can either work fantastically well, so much so that you slip into this amalgam of the two together. And the story and the sound sing their own song, and you are transported. And then other times you'll watch a film and you just think, you've disengaged, you sit back. Sometimes the sound has been, the soundtrack's too jarring. they've made such a big contrast. Like in some action movies, they put this gentle string music on while people are like hitting each other. And sometimes that works, that can be really powerful. But if it's done really badly, people just think, it's like breaking the mood. So I notice a lot when music and visuals jar or don't work. I want to believe, though. I'm very happy to suspend all belief and just, experience the flow. So, yeah, good question. Okay. Hi.
Could you translate the colors of these flags?
Oh, what the sort of music tech fest thing. Okay, great question. They are kind of quite lovely because I'm seeing them all together. If you see them one at a time, I'll do a few of them because some of them sing more. But the orange one there in the middle, so third from the left, is in an E flat. And what's nice about that one and the one next to it, which is in a sort of E flat seventh. So in my head, I look at them both together and I kind of have this, which makes me think a little bit of the, and so that's basically what my brain does when I see those together. Do you want some more of the colours? Okay, so the blue and the purpley ones, they are kind of... Now, what's weird about this is it's kind of got this... it's almost mournful but beautiful. And I think those blue and purples together, it's quite grounding. So that's what happens when I see those colours. Most of the time, sound goes into colour, so it's quite weird. It's almost like I'm reverse engineering. It's a bit like I'm eating the egg on its own instead of in a cake, and it tastes nicer in a cake. More questions? Hello.
How was for you to realize that you perceive in this
Oh.
way? And then you were like, okay, I'll go to a piano, maybe not painting or something else.
So two parts to that story. How did I realise that I have the music and the colour thing, and how did I know that I could do whatever this is? The oddest thing was I was in the Hacker House in Boston with Michaela, and you had this honey that was from New Zealand, and it was in this lovely kind of, it's like a B flat major with and it also had like a sixth in it as well. And then it was, and that was the sound of this honey. And I would say, wow, this is a beautiful taste. It's got a B flat major sixth in it. And then there was this sort of pause. And this, I might add, was after no sleep for a while. So I'd gone crazy enough to let that filter come down. And you went, oh, have you heard of this thing called synesthesia? And I said, what's synesthesia? And went and did some research. I thought, oh, you mean the whole time I've been experiencing the world, this is the name, and not everybody has this. Because growing up with that brain, you think everyone else has it. I thought everybody else could hear and play. I thought everybody else saw colours when they heard music, and when you eat things, you see sound. But that's not the case. And so it was almost like a relief to find out that this condition had a name. And up until that point, I was worried that I was failing at the world because I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand why other people weren't as careful with eating as I was. Like if things have raisins in, I find that difficult. So the stealth raisins in the donut last night really did startle me. And
How did it sound?
they're kind of like a... Because the thing is donuts sound like this. The raisins do not go with this kind of... You have to be in the mood for that. It's a bit like if you eat, I don't know, garlic bread and chocolate cake at the same time. They can actually taste quite nice.
There are no raisins in this.
Ah,
Would you like to
are we
play that to us?
doing eating now? Aren't we going to do that tomorrow night? Because I'm a bit conscious of the time. This is the trailer. Okay. This is a common or garden wafer.
What she's not saying is that you actually became a hacker.
Yes, I created an app with the help of 2 other MTFers. At the time it was called Sound Bites, and the idea was to pair music with food. I had in my head a data set that was of great amusement to a bunch of tech people, because you can pair, I've always found that I can play with this mapping in my head, and suddenly people were interested in it. So things like, you know, like, let me think. This is Hotel California. Eat mashed potato with this. I don't know why, but it works. And yeah, we had an app that was called Sound Bites, and we won. So. We met, CJ and I, and we collaborated on a crazy classical breakcore, romance, ballet, musical, ever-growing, amorphous musical expression. And yeah, we'd maybe do something with Beethoven and AI. I don't know, maybe. Oh, yes. A normal wafer biscuit. It has layers. Now, what's interesting about this is that it already looks weird. And I think for when you start doing the labs, the idea of experimenting with how you perceive things, and maybe I actually believe that everybody has a sensitivity within them, a synesthesia of their own. It might not be as intense and difficult as mine, but you have it within you, which is why you can say why you like or dislike a piece of music. It's like an artist will tell you how a piece is composed, how a piece of art is composed. They'll talk about the golden section, they'll talk about composition, whereas somebody who isn't artistically trained would say, I like that piece of art. So I think you can tap into this deep connection that we all have with each other, with our music, with everything. So first of all, looking at the shape, it looks quite futuristic. It actually doesn't look dissimilar to the campus that we're currently in. So that, on its own, the shape itself is like this. It's quite jaunty, it's quite happy, it's quite crunchy. Okay, so I'm now going to eat a bit. How many of you tasted that wafer sympathetically just then, by the way? This is like this weird, empathetic thing that goes on, and I believe that that's what we experience when we hear people playing music, and why live music is so effective. You're feeling more than the vibrations. The musician is able to cognitively amplify their experience for the benefit of the listener. So that actually tastes like this. It's quite nice, but there's not much to it. It's kind of, it's not substantial, but it's not unpleasant. That's not dinner, that's a biscuit. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm just going to wrap with one last question, if anyone, hello.
Do you ever get overloaded with this information?
All the time.
Yeah.
Pleasant, neutral experience, or is it like you cannot handle it at times?
There are moments where I feel quite overwhelmed, and for a longest time I didn't listen to music voluntarily because I didn't understand how to pass the inputs. So what was happening was I just had this wall of sound and colour and light and food and coming at me the whole time, and I was just struggling to filter. And I learned partly self-taught coping mechanisms, but also the kind of joy of finding other people who had found ways to understand not just themselves but the world around them. And I think with my synesthesia, it was suddenly like, okay, so it doesn't matter that the walls are this colour, the music is playing in the background is in this key, and all I have to do now is catalogue it. And once I've catalogued it, I can put it into the back of my mind, and I can then concentrate on, say, the conversation I'm having, and not the colours flickering from the projector, or the way that these are in reverse polarity either side, or the fact that I've got a piano here that I could just play at any moment. And you know, all of those thoughts can kind of coalesce, and it allows me to focus on you, on the audience, on our experience right now in this moment. And that's something that I learned more the more I accepted the parts of me that are not considered conventional. And instead of feeling like I didn't fit, I feel like I don't have to fit. There's a difference between being respectful of your surroundings and respectful of people, and you know, and being authentic. And there are ways where you can respect people and be authentic at the same time. And that's what I strive to do. And I hope that sort of answers your question. Yeah, cool. So you know, if music is human assembly language, and voice is almost like the next layer up. And what we do with our voice, both with machines and with our interactions with each other, it can be such a powerful thing. And I feel that music and voice are the same. And so when you go into your labs this afternoon, I would like you to think of music in everything that we touch, from the biscuits to the desk, to the way that somebody's eyes dance when they listen to you. And I wish you all the best, and I will be hanging around for another few days. Come and chat to me, I'm quite friendly. Thank you very much.